Shubhaji. So I'll shift to the next slide. Yeah, good, Shubhaji.
Yam yam vyapi smaran bhavam.
Vapi. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam.
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Tyajat
Correct.
yante kalevaram.
Tyajatyante kalevaram.
Tyajatyante kalevaram. Tam tam eveti kaunteya. Tada tadbhavamavitaha.
Excellent. Can you please chant again?
Yam yam vyapi smaran
Vapi. Yam yam vapi.
Vapi, right?
Vapi.
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Tyajatye tyajantyan
Tyajatyante. Tyajat. Tyajat.
Tyajatyante
Tyajatyante.
Tyajatyante kalevaram. Tam tam eveti kaunteya. Sada tadbhava vitaha.
Tadbhava bhavitaha.
Oh, I missed bhava. Okay. Tadbhava bhavitaha.
Excellent.
Yam which, va or api even, smaran remembering, bhavam nature, tyajati leaves, ante in the end, kalevaram the body, tam to that, deva only, iti goes, kaunteya o son of Kunti, sada constantly, tat bhava bhavitaha thinking of that object. Whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail.
Thank you very much, Shubhaji. Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
So now, yeah.
Can we relate this to story of Jadabharata?
Absolutely. So tell us what you understand by that. How do you connect and how is it applicable?
So he was a great sage. When he met his end, he was thinking of that deer calf, right?
Yeah.
So the next birth, he took the he took the body of the deer.
Yeah.
So that is how my thought came.
Excellent.
For this.
Yeah. Also, one is the story of the Jadabharata, which is from the Puranas. But is there any other, let's say, modern day stories or modern day situations that you are aware of, which you can apply to this situation? What is this shloka pointing at? Okay, let me give one more word. So, what is the way you understand reincarnation?
Sir, could you repeat that? What did you say? What incarnation?
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so what is your understanding, Padmaji?
Sir, I think that we have various senses in our body, and we are constantly in search of something or getting towards something. So when the time to leave this body comes, at that time whatever our thought process is, that is where that is what will lead us to the reincarnation or the next body that we will take. So essentially what I feel is like even in the picture, if you see, there is a picture of somebody who is so attached to food. So something like, very somebody who's very gluttony, who only thinks of food all the time, like over that sense in him is so overpowering. So he probably takes the birth of a pig in the next lifetime, because a pig is someone like that who doesn't even look anywhere else. It's always looking to the ground and searching for food.
Yeah.
And similarly, if you're devoted to, if you have devotion and if you're constantly thinking of God, then your next birth will take you towards that or advance you in that path, is how I understand. So essentially, towards the end of the lifetime, I mean, whatever process we go through, we might have these senses, but we have to overcome them slowly and go towards devotion and towards the divine, is what I think the shloka states.
Excellent. Excellent. So
So
it's
one
not
more
just really.
example.
Yeah, go ahead, Shubhaji.
One more example I felt appropriate is Parikshit Maharaj. In the end, he was listening to Bhagavatam, so he attained moksha. So,
Yeah.
if you think of God in the end, you will definitely attain moksha, is what I understood.
Wonderful. So it is primarily a purification of the mind. What about Ashaji? What is Ashaji's view on this shloka?
Okay. Yeah, I have heard this story of Jadabharata, but basically the concept of reincarnation, right?
Yeah.
So that maybe I am not with much knowledge of, like, I've heard because it happens, but there is no something like okay, I mean, we say, right, when we are not able to see something, it is little difficult to believe. So in that way, the concept of reincarnation, I just want you to throw some light, like,
Okay.
does
So
it?
even
Yeah.
even from a modern, let's say, research standpoint, right? You'll find many observations. So in fact, there is one. See, what is science fundamentally? Science is, in the way it is practiced today, science is about having a certain hypothesis and doing certain experiments to see what is the outcome of the experiment and whether it matches with the hypothesis. For example, the hypothesis, I throw the ball up, it comes down. So I do experiments. I keep throwing and it comes down. And it is done in various circumstances. Then I can say with certainty that this hypothesis is correct. There is something that makes this which goes up to come down. But then there may be limiting conditions. If something is thrown so fast, called as escape velocity, it can even go beyond the Earth's gravitational pull. That's how rockets are propelled into the outer atmosphere. So like that, science always works with a certain hypothesis and certain observations and certain proof, and then arriving at, yeah, this is the truth, or the way we state it in science. So when we say, for example, something like reincarnation, let us first look at it from the modern science standpoint. So there was one very famous research done, and there's a very popular book also available. It is written by one, I think, a Cambridge scientist. It's called 20 Cases Indicative of Reincarnation. There, the author is a scientist. He examined various cases where reincarnation was reported. How do they report reincarnation? Usually, it is reported in little children. So, many cases where little children who don't yet have any possibility of knowing about some other place, some other set of people, have recalled and recollected and spoken at length very clearly about various situations and incidents. So this book has many such cases where he went into investigating whether these could be made up, whether into the child's mind somebody already put this story and so the child is able to recollect. Like that, he first of all examined and found no connection like that in these 20 cases. Of course, he received many cases, but he has picked in this book 20 cases which clearly illustrate no connection like that. Two different places, two different set of peoples who have no way of meeting with each other, no way their stories can come. So the child is able to recollect my wife, my child, how I died, what happened and all that. So this is one, again, a suggestion of proof. Again, all that I'm saying is not something for you to believe in. Is something for you to investigate and come to your own clarity. All right. So this is one thing. Second thing, Prabhuji always talks about one particular situation where when he was in a class in Pune, one lady came to his class, and that lady said his son, whenever they were driving in a particular road, would always ask her to stop and go to a house and say, this is where my wife and my family lives, and another particular road, this is where I was killed in a road accident. Like that, this child was able to very clearly illustrate. And they found that, whatever the incidents and situations and people, references the child was giving were all connected. And no way this lady was connected to that other family. Then the third thing that you can consider is, you may have heard about hypnotherapy, past life regression. So during hypnotic state, many therapists take people to their memories. Okay, so what is past life essentially? What happened to you, let's say 3 days back, you may not vividly recollect now. It has become your past. 3 years, little more vague. You have vague recollections. This is what I think they said. Some more years, little more vague. So essentially past life is nothing but, your memory is infinite. There is no limit. But you seem to remember only things that make sense to you now. Because see, our ability to deal with life is only so much. Imagine, you had all the recollections about, who your past husband was or what body you had. All that will mess up the mind. So therefore, in a way, this limited memory is a protection mechanism until one is able to transcend that and deal with it. So in the past life regression, many people have recollected various situations which have been cause for this life's certain situations of their particular life. So like that, reincarnation is a statement of truth given in Bhagavad Gita, shown through various stories in Purana. But for you, you need to arrive at it based on your own investigation. Don't just believe in what is being said. Understand it based on how it makes sense to you. Investigate and then arrive at that clarity. Here what is Krishna saying? Krishna is saying that what is your ongoing life's tendencies, that's what will come to you at the very end. So what is that? So please look at this picture. So you do certain things that leaves a certain impression, and when you keep doing that again and again, that becomes your tendency. So that is what is karma, samskara, vasana, vritti. This is a cycle. So you go and eat laddu. Oh, first time, oh, I love that taste. It left an impression. And then you wanted to again and again have that. It became a vasana, a tendency. I love sweets. I hate bitter gourd. So see, it has become a tendency now. But in the beginning, there was no love or hatred towards either of them. But when you did a action, and then when that impression came in, then you loved certain sensations, you did not like certain sensations. You put your hand on the fire, it burnt. That's also sensation. You put laddu into your mouth, that is also sensation. Ultimately, to you, everything is a sensation. The burning of fire, or the taste of the laddu, or the wonderful music, or very lousy harsh sound, or somebody praising you, somebody scolding you, all are fundamentally sensations. So you like certain sensations, you did not like certain sensations. You gravitate towards certain sensations, you want to move away from certain sensations. This is what creates this cycle. The karma and the impression of it, the samskara, then the tendency that develops when I repetitively do that, vasana, then that becomes my constant thinking pattern. Oh, I am very, let's say, some people carry this. Oh, I'm a very dull person. I don't understand mathematics. Oh, I'm a very ugly looking person. I am not very beautiful. Oh, I am very, very intelligent. I can solve this so easily. All these become, this is who I am, kind of a pattern they become. I have become, based on the action I did, I've become a collection of those sensations, whatever the impressions they've left in the mind, I've become that. I get associated with that. This is the fundamental ignorance. This creates always a feeling of incompleteness. Because I like something means I don't like something. So which means that what I like, I want to have more and more, more and more, more and more. That's what creates the desire. And when I don't get it, I get into unhappiness, worry. Oh, I am not getting that. So all my actions are then oriented towards wanting to get something that I like and not wanting to get something and avoiding something that I don't like. So therefore, here Krishna is once again reminding us.
Sir, your audio broke.
Okay, at what point it broke? Padmaji,
You were saying something about Krishna now. Just before that, a few words we couldn't hear.
Oh, okay. So, what I was saying is, this is the fundamental ignorance. The ignorance is what? Ignorance is nothing but, I want something, and by doing, I will get it, and then only I will become happy. And this cycle has become now a perpetual cycle, or it seems like a perpetual cycle. So this cycle is a cycle of the karma. What is the effect of this cycle? It creates a feeling of incompleteness. In other words, what does the ego do? Ego separates you from rest. Ego means what? A certain shape, a certain akara. Ahamkara, aham akara. I am intelligent. Then there is something else that I seeing as not intelligent. I am beautiful. Then something else that is not beautiful. Or I am very dull. Then there is something else that is not dull. Like that, whatever the shape and form I take, I am a husband. Then I have taken the shape of a husband. Then all the things associated with being a husband come. Like that, ahankara is nothing but I get connected to that particular shape. And how that shape came in the first place? Because of this action. And whether I like that or I didn't like it. So, this ego then creates a sense of incompleteness. Oh, I am incomplete. So then that incompleteness propels me to do more and more action. Because now I have to become complete. So to become complete, then I have to seek the remaining things. So life then starts moving towards seeking. So it becomes a fruit-oriented movement. So this is the fundamental ignorance. And this becomes when it becomes a deeper tendency, why Krishna is calling our attention to end of life is because when you wake up in the morning, what kind of thoughts come to your mind? Depends upon what kind of activities you got yourself involved with. Say for example, about 20 years back, maybe when you were not even married and when you didn't have a child, the first set of thoughts would be maybe, let's say if you're a child, to run out, to see the plants, to see the birds, or depending upon what kind of activities are happening in your house, as soon as you wake up, maybe you're used to, where is my milk? You may feel like I want to drink milk. A little later, where is my coffee? Some people cannot without coffee go to even toilet. So like that, various tendencies get created. I heard one funny story from one of my teacher. There was apparently a person who had to read Kannada Prabha, have to have a cigarette and a coffee, then only he could clear his bowels. And he was going to USA. Okay, so where to get Kannada Prabha? So he bought a stack of Kannada Prabha from here. Somebody asked him why. Oh, I have to clear my bowels. So you see, like that, various tendencies, they get deep rooted. They become so deep rooted that we sometimes forget that it's a tendency that we have picked up. How did it become a habit pattern? Because I started repetitively practicing that. What I repetitively practice is what becomes my thinking process. What becomes my thinking process is what I start exhibiting as my personality. And that is what people recognize. Oh, this person is like this, like this, like this. But this is something that is what has got programmed into me. So what got programmed into me can be modified very easily. So Krishna is calling our attention. You are not the program. You are beyond the program. But sometimes the mind is not yet able to recognize that you are beyond the program. So therefore here Krishna is giving an instruction that look, if you don't break away from the program, what is the problem with having this program? It's so nice. What is the problem in me eating like a pig? What is there in life? No problem. But remember, that's what carries forward. It's a never-ending loop. You have become dependent on that. There's no problem in eating. There's no problem in the food. When you have become dependent on that, when, oh, I feel incomplete without that, then there is a problem. That is what causes all the misery in life, no? I don't have money. I don't have power. I don't have knowledge. I don't have. So many don't haves. So it's that don't have. I'm not saying that it is not wrong to learn something. I'm not saying that we should not be learning. But learning to make me feel complete is never going to help. So therefore, here Krishna is giving us that knowledge which can end our sense of incompleteness. But in life, this lifelong learning or infinite learning. But now that learning is no more out of incompleteness. That learning can be now out of the joy of learning. Like a child. Child is constantly curious and has no problems at all when you say, don't you know that? The child doesn't take an offense to don't you know that. Child asks, yeah, I don't know that. Can you please tell me? Child is happy to recognize that it doesn't know and it wants to know. But I get asked that question, don't you know that? I become tough. He's calling me stupid. Huh? Wait, I'll get back to you. So Krishna is again calling to our own tendencies of our own mind. So that tendency is what keeps giving birth to our next actions. What you seek is nothing but based on the impressions in your mind. So reincarnation doesn't necessarily have to mean another life, another body. You're constantly dying, you're constantly taking birth as a body and mind. Your body is constantly dying. Billions of cells are constantly getting regenerated in its place. You're no more the same body that you came into this world with. Your mind is constantly also changing. So in one sense, birth and death is every moment. Every moment is a wonderful balance of birth, death. So Ramana Maharshi, that's why he always says, so hum. So is the in-breath, is like life. Hum is the out-breath, like death. So life is constantly in-breath, out-breath. Life and death, life and death. But you, the watcher of that, is there. You, the watcher of that in-breath and out-breath, you have no birth and death. So therefore reincarnation doesn't necessarily have to mean, the next life. You are now a reincarnated version. You are not the same version that was born as a body, as a mind also. You are constantly morphing. You are constantly reincarnating. Please see that. The Asha that came into this session is no more there. Now it's a totally different Asha. So many, each one of us is, you cannot say that, oh, I know Padma. No, that Padma that I knew is no more there. Gone. So in that scheme of things, reincarnation, the way we think of death is, oh, this person has died, let's go and bury. In that sense also there is reincarnation. In the sense of our moment to moment living also, there is constant morphing. But what is morphing? You are not morphing. The body and mind are morphing. So therefore, become clear that you are not morphing, you are not changing. The body and mind, the instrument is changing. So therefore, the fundamental intention of this shloka is to again point at your unchanging nature and the life's changing nature. Ashaji, is
Sir,
this...
I have a question.
Yes, Padmaji.
Yeah, so here in that slide you have mentioned only jnana can burn karma, right? So this jnana is essentially the knowledge of the self, or it is the discrimination part that we are referring to?
So knowledge of the self, and knowledge of the self can be only by discrimination, right? So who is changing, who is not changing, that is Viveka. Yeah, and that Viveka is nothing but the Jnana. What is Jnana? Jnana is nothing but you are not the changing. Oh, then how do I recognize that? Use this Viveka. What Viveka? Realize what is changing, what is not changing. Atma Anatma Viveka. Nitya Anitya Viveka. What is constantly there, what is constantly changing. So all of this can be packaged as Jnana. And that particular logic, what is changing, what is not changing, is Viveka. So Viveka is part of Jnana. Ashaji, is this bringing clarity?
Yes, but adding to that, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Like when you said that, like when you say to a kid, like if they're not knowing something, okay, they accept it easily. But when we as a grown up, like when we're not knowing something, like we are offended, right? I mean, okay, it is like we have to know it. So there is always a seeking for more knowledge kind of thing, and also like the association, like say when you said we are not, we are dull, or we are bright, then we associate with the color or the knowledge. So it is I don't know, like it is by nature. Everybody speaks just like that, right? So if we have to go a step beyond, and we have to not bother about either we are dull or bright. So how do we, understand that?
Okay. So, um, can I frame the question like this? The question is, what enables me not to be connected with these identities? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. See, the only way is to recognize who you are, isn't it? So, for example, when you recognize yourself as a mother, you will think and act like a mother. What is the difference between, see, for example, in life, no? Um, okay, let's see if it works. I don't know whether this experiment will work here. Asha ji, for a moment, no? I have made you the mayor of Bangalore. Okay? Now you are the mayor of Bangalore. So now we have a Zoom meeting, Asha ji, and we have so many citizens of Bangalore here. We have Padma ji, Shubha ji, Ashwini ji, Shilpa ji, Saravanan ji, all of us are here. So let us all welcome Asha ji, our grand mayor, with a grand clap. Welcome, Asha ji. Asha ji, congratulations on being the mayor. Asha ji, please tell us a little bit more about. We all think that Bangalore is a very dirty city, very nasty city. Can you please tell us how you will improve Bangalore? Please tell us few things about how you will improve Bangalore, Asha ji. Are you?
Maybe like following few guidelines. Bringing in some guidelines to be followed. We have to just follow the rules, and to keep the city clean. Some strict rules and regulations. Maybe we can just frame and put over, so
What will
that
you do as
everybody
a
follows.
mayor? What will you do as a mayor to help us to follow those?
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's what. Like as I said, we have to first. First in place, we have to follow the rules. We have to not throw the dirt on the roads, so that the same thing we have to take it to each and every citizen. We must make sure that everybody follows the rules and guidelines.
Excellent. So we'll just by following, making the rules, and how will you enforce the rules on us, Asha ji? What are your ideas for that?
Ideas is like uh, by providing some what is that, like for each and every area, we just get dustbins, so that everybody sorts out the dry and the wet waste, and then in that way we can just prevent the accumulation of the garbage.
Excellent idea. Excellent idea. Will you give by the government the dustbins, or will you want us to pay for the dustbins?
No, probably we will give from the government itself.
Very nice, Asha ji. Have you looked into the budget of that? Is it available?
That we are just yet to look into.
Very nice, Asha ji. Let us all thank Asha ji for a wonderful initiation and also, wonderful program and how she is going to improve our city. Thank you very much, Asha ji. Thank you. So from this little experiment, Asha ji, see, about 5 minutes back, you are not a mayor.
Yeah.
When I called you a mayor, see how your mind started working?
Yes.
I just put you some questions. And what answers you gave were dependent upon what kind of thoughts you have about how you can improve this city.
Yes.
So, if I had asked the same question, if I had made Saravananji mayor, maybe he would have given slightly different answers.
Yeah.
So in just 5 minutes, the wonderful mother Asha ji became a wonderful mayor, Mayor Asha ji.
Okay.
So now, let's say if I really go and put you into the mayor office, and there will be so many people saluting you, opening the car door for you, and wherever you go, namaste ma'am, namaste ma'am. You get into that role completely, isn't it? And then now, let's say even after 5 years of being a mayor, wherever you go, you would expect the same kind of treatment, isn't it? You want people to open the doors for you. You want people to bow down and salute to you. Whenever you're called in for a ceremony, you have to be made to sit in the front. People have to announce. People have to clap. If that doesn't happen, you feel, I'm hurt, isn't it? So from where is that coming? It came because you got connected to the role called a mayor. So, the fundamental freedom in life is by recognizing that everything that you are doing in life is a role play. Being a mother, being a daughter, being a daughter-in-law, being a wife, everything, each and every activity of your life is based on a certain role that you play in that situation. But you are not any of those roles. You are playing those roles. You are beyond the roles. The identity game is with the roles.
You mean to say, like, say suppose as a mayor, if I'm not performing well, so or I have not performed well, so that shouldn't be bothering me.
No. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, you are the role. You're playing the role. But thinking that I am the role causes the fundamental ignorance, and that is the root of all the confusions in life. So the fundamental clarity to your question is, I am none of the roles I am playing. That fundamental clarity has to be there. Your next question is, how should I play that role? That's a different question. How should I play the game of life? How should I play the game of life? See, that's why Atmano Mokshartam Jagaditaya Cha. The root cause of all problems is wrong identity. I am a mayor, I am a mother, I am a daughter-in-law, I am a wife, I am a husband, I am a boss, I am dull, I am intelligent. All these are identities. Connecting to those identities is the root cause of all miseries in life. So to come out of that is Atmano Mokshartam. You are none of the roles you are playing. You are that pure awareness. You are not the body. You're not also the content of your mind. Right now, you are expressing through that mind and body. You are none of that. So, gaining that clarity through clear jnana is Atmano Mokshartam. That is why the statement here, only jnana can burn karma. That jnana, that has to be very clearly realized. Like how, when I ask you what's your name, you may say Asha, or you may say I'm a female. They have become now deeply ingrained thought patterns. I am this body, I am this mother. All of that have become deeply ingrained. That has to be through clear understanding, identified. Who am I? That's the first suggestion for your first question. How to become free? The only way to become free is realize the identity game and realize that you are none of the identities. Then comes the next question. Okay, then how do I play the game? Jagaditaya cha. The game has to be played for the welfare of all beings. When you play the game for the welfare of all beings, that is dharma. So when you play the game, keeping in mind dharma, then the game will not bind you. That is what you can see in the life of Krishna. Krishna was a lover boy. Krishna was a wonderful child to his mother. Krishna was a friend. Krishna was a statesman. Krishna was a king. Krishna was a charioteer. He had no qualms in becoming a charioteer to Arjuna. He never said, hey, I have been the king. Oh, I am Paramatma. None of those identities bound him. So, when you are bound by the identity, the life becomes a misery. When you're free from the identity, then you can take any identity and master that. So, mastering the life is by recognizing that you are none of the identities. When you are a mayor, you have mayor problems. When somebody doesn't open the door, you feel insulted. When you are recognizing you are playing the role of a mayor, if they don't open the door, you know you are not insulted. When you are somebody, that somebody's problems will be there. When you are nobody, then you are liberated. Then you are free in life to take any role, to play in any manner. That's why Krishna's life was called as a Leela Jala. Krishna loved Rasa Leela. People wrongly construe it as, oh, he used to love dancing with women. No, not like that. Rasa Leela means life became a wonderful journey of movement, like a dance. Rasa Leela. Very enjoyable process. Life is a very enjoyable process. Both the bitter that comes, both the sweet that comes is enjoyable when you are not connected to the identity game. Does that bring clarity, Ashaji?
Yes.
Yes, Sarananji, you want to say something?
I'm not sure if we can continue, but it may lead to a bigger discussion. That's why. What the root cause I see is there seems to be this desire in each one of the jiva to expand, and looks like there is a staircase shown everywhere, be it in a school classroom where you are given marks, and then like, hey, you have to keep improving, keep climbing up, or your work, and then like you see the staircase, so you have to keep climbing up, right? And maybe that's what I feel, and for some reason it is like so deeply in everyone, like, so you see that like everyone is trying to climb up, and like if you even try to say, hey, I'm happy, I will stand here, and like it's you are seen as the odd one, like what are you doing here, like why are you not trying to improve? Like it's the sometimes the words being used is like you have to keep improvising it, even if that means that like you are never the complete person, or you are never the best person, right? And I feel like that, and that has like so many infinite parameters, right? You can try to improvise on one, and then like the other person will say like, hey, you have to keep improvising this side, and that's where I actually started 2-3 years back. But yeah, that's what I feel like is creating this cycle, right?
I want to say something like, see, there is always a choice, right, Saravanan? We have a choice. We have a choice. You are saying that, okay, for example, if you are a successful man in terms of, your business or your work, okay,
that's where
suppose
the catch is successful.
Yeah. So see, that is what the success is for you to determine. What is meant by success for you personally is what I am talking about. If I come and tell you my idea of success might be very different, and I am looking at you from my perspective, right? And suppose from my perspective you are very successful in your business, okay? However, say your kids are not doing so well academically, and vice versa. For me, it's the other way. I come and say to you, I may feel that why my kids are very successful, that is more important for me. So I'll come and tell you, oh, what is the point of all this success in business? Look at your kids. They are not doing so well. So I think how we are conditioned, and what we look at success or anything determines what we opt for, or how we see our lives. But then what happens is we also bring in other people's view, like what is he thinking about us, what is that person thinking about us. So I think essentially it is like comparing ourselves constantly to these various parameters that essentially society has set. It is not like we have personally done it, and because of certain conditionings we take it upon ourselves, whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not. But I think although we have certain conditions to cross over, I think essentially we can at least not extend it to our kids, the next generation at least. From this, I remember one beautiful statement, that I heard in one of Sadhguru's talks. So he would say that, somebody put a question as to how to raise our kids. And then he had only one line to say. He said that before you raise your kids, you raise yourself up. That is sufficient, is what he said. So that kind of left a very deep mark on me, because that is where it all starts, right, with you. And that is the only thing that we have control of and that we can change. I don't think we can change anybody else, whether it's our husband, wife, kids. I mean, I even feel very difficult to change the dog that lives with me, he has a mind of his own, and it's impossible, I feel. So one thing I have discovered is if we go with the flow and let things flow, there is a magic in that, and you will be amazed in that, I feel.
So Kathaji, even here, even if you take this example where you define your success as like raising the kids, there comes the attachment, and then now
correct, definitely, that's
success, what, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so the entire thing is only about letting go. I feel letting go of everything, letting go of our attachment, letting go of our ego. So
Yeah.
everything is basically to let go.
So I want to clarify one thing.
Mhm.
See, there is nothing wrong in
Mm.
defining an aim.
Mm.
I want to send my child to, let's say, Stanford,
Mm.
or I want to become the CEO of my company where I work for, or I want to create this, let's say, instrument or something which grows bigger and bigger and bigger. There's nothing wrong in having an aim.
But that isn't that a desire?
Ah, that's what I'm coming to. There's nothing wrong with the desire. Where is the problem? Where is the catch? The catch is in the expectation on the fruit. Desire is never the problem.
No, but see, the moment, let's say, uh, if a desire is a short timed one,
Yeah.
and you get success, it just like puts you in a high, okay, and then you want to do it again, and like you want to do it again.
That is why the fundamental thing is leave the attachment to the fruit. See, Krishna never said leave desires. Krishna never said leave desires. He said karmano vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Do your duty without attachment to the fruit of the action. But at the same time, Arjuna, never be in inaction, he said. So because the life's propensity is to move. Life cannot be static. Life is a wonderful machine which keeps on morphing. And you are part of that morph. You have to also enable that morphing. Life expresses through you also. You have something beautiful to offer to life. Through maybe your poem, through maybe your cooking, through maybe your business, whatever it may be. Absolutely nothing wrong in having a desire. See, Light of the Self Foundation is not sitting idle saying that, okay, we have made the statement, Atmano Mokshartam Jagaditayacha. No, right now, there's iLead program, looking at how to bring in hundreds and hundreds more children. All of that is desire only, no? But that desire has no binding. That desire is no more making you feel, ayo, I have to talk to all these children, I have to do all this. No.
But like what if that you don't see the result in some time? Will that not lead to?
Doesn't matter. Because the purpose is what is driving. What is the purpose? The purpose is to take the message of the masters and offer it. See, when let's say you go and talk to your child about a certain change, okay, how she can study, you have the liberty to offer it, but whether she accepts and changes is left to her, no? Likewise, you can take the horse to the water. Can you make the horse drink the water? No. So same with all of us. So therefore, whether the fruit happens or not, imagine you are a farmer and you are 80 years old. You still are digging and you are putting a seed. Somebody comes and asks, why are you doing? You will not even be there maybe before it even becomes a little grown up. No, it's not for me. It's for my grandchildren. It's for everybody else to enjoy.
But Vijayji, will that not leave an impression towards the end, Antakale, that like you will again?
That's why the first thing you have to be clear that I'm none of the role I'm playing. I'm not the farmer. I'm not doing it for my sake. When I have the identity, then it leaves an impression. I am doing. So therefore, the first clarity is Atmano Mokshartam. Who am I has to be clearly understood. Then I am nobody. Then who is doing the action then? Then the action is happening. Then there is no more personal ownership of who is doing it.
If it is happening, will you not say that like you don't have to desire because it is happening? You are instrument and whatever. Already we discussed about this free will, right?
Correct.
It is.
But how will life move? How will life move? If I don't fix the time that, okay, let's all meet at 6 o'clock, how will life move? If we don't fix the thought that, okay, today we are taking up this particular shloka for contemplation, how will it move? Now, who is fixing? As long as that, oh, I am this great boss, I am fixing the direction for my company, everybody just fall in line. Irrespective of what somebody else has a better idea, I am the boss. When I'm fixed to that identity and I function only like that, then there is a disaster. But, okay, can we move together in a direction? In which direction should we move? Okay, let's all come together, let's discuss. Is this the right direction? Does it make sense? Because life is expressing through you, through me, through the others. So which means that life can move in the collective direction that we all take. See, that is why the notion of a country is very important. Notion of a Rashtra in Bharata is not that of a geographical boundary. Is a set of minds which are feeling and working together in the same direction. In which direction? In the direction of the welfare for the whole world. So Bharata, where light is leading the Ratha. Which light? The light that is no more connected to this mind and body. Then that light only looks at how the welfare of the world is. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Is no more limited to thinking me and my family. Because me and my family is an identity based game. Me and my family, my caste, my religion, my country defined by that physical boundary is still a me and mine in a way. But now the identity has at least slightly grown larger. So the game of life is not binding because I had a desire. But because I had an attachment to the desire, I had an attachment to the outcome of the desire. I did so much, I got only this much. I worked so hard, they didn't even take my name. So the attachment to the outcome of the desire or the fruit of the action is what binding me. And who is binding to the fruit of the action? That limited identity. Because the limited identity is the one which is seeking the fruit. So therefore the first instruction given by Arjuna to Arjuna by Krishna is become unlimited. Realize you are unlimited. You are not any of these limited identities. Now you play the game of life. As long as you play the game of life with any kind of limited identity, it is bound to bind you. But when you play the game of life with no identity attachment, then you are playing the game like Krishna. You are Sarathi when situation needs. You are a king when situation needs. You can clean the toilet, no qualms. You can sit on the podium and give a talk, no problem. Neither of them binds you. You are not what you are playing the role. But the role you must play. Game of life you must play, because the thrill is in playing the game. The thrill is not in sitting, I am contempt. No, the thrill is not in that. The thrill is, what's the next best thing I can do? Okay, now 10 children are getting benefited. Can 100 children get benefited? What if 1,000 children get benefited?
But if we see that like everything is Brahman, and like Brahman is there everywhere, and like Brahman is taking all these roles. Right? What are like are we not getting into this trap that like there is something good, there is something not so good, and like this is good, and like we have to get everyone or everything to this.
Okay. So
why are we?
So look at life and respond to life. Imagine your children are hungry. Will you keep quiet? Oh, Brahman. Will you keep quiet? So clarity is different. Action is different. Action has to emerge out of clarity. If this is Brahman, if that is Brahman, how am I serving the Brahman? If I have so much of pain when my child is hungry, then that neighbor's child, when it is hungry, how can I keep quiet and think that, oh, it's all Brahman, Brahman will take care? Then what is the use of this mind and body? Will truly Brahman speak like I am Brahman and you are Brahman? Will it make it like two Brahmans? Then that clarity, when I eat, am I eating for this finger or this finger? I am looking at this as one whole composite. When this is in pain, this hand reaches out and says, don't worry, don't worry. You know, it naturally goes. It does this. That is the dharma of life. It is natural. See, when something is hurt, the other hand goes there naturally. This hand is not saying, I am separate. You know, you are the one who got hurt. You deal with it. I am happy. I am fine. No, it is one single composite. It naturally flows there. So that's where it is not just about intellectually thinking that I am Brahman. It is living that. And to live that means what? To see Brahman in everyone, not as another, as reflection of me. Can I ever be hungry? Do I like to be hungry? As far as keeping my body hungry? No. Then hunger causes the same kind of pain in the other. When my ignorance caused all the trials and tribulations in my life, can I see other person going through that suffering just because of this wonderful jnana that is not with them? Why should you take the message of the master to the others? Because the message of the master is what liberates others. And when somebody comes and tells you, Saravanji, what you said helped my life, how will you feel? That trupti, is all that benefit that you get. Will they come back and say that or not is a different thing. As long as you are not connected to, they have to come back and tell me, then you are bound. But when you are offering, when the sun god is shining the light, he is not thinking of right and wrong. He just shines. That is his nature. When wind flows, that is its nature. When the tree gives the fruit, that is its nature. So what is your nature? Your nature is to be kind and compassionate. That is your inherent nature. Please look at it. A little child cannot see others suffer. It goes and does something. Whatever little it knows. Even a little dog, if you are suffering, it will come and put its mouth and do something to you. Because life wants to tell you that, we are together. You are not alone. So that intellectual clarity, when it emerges into life, it becomes the compassion, kindness and togetherness. So that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is no more just a statement to be intellectually understood. It is to be lived. Lived by serving everyone. So for that service, desire gives you the direction. But how do you come to that clarity? Not by activist kind of a mindset. These people are subjugated, these people are inferior, I have superior knowledge. Again, there is an ego-based service. So therefore, it has to be very clearly understood. Ego-based service will always bind you. So therefore, the first statement is Atmano Mokshartham. I have to realize the true nature of life. Then the natural service flows naturally. It is not an intellectual, I have to go and help my child who is suffering. When my child is suffering, I rush. It doesn't need any instruction, doesn't need intellectual processing. When somebody falls, you rush, you want to lift them up. That's the way life flows naturally. Is this bringing clarity or is it still leaving questions?
Maybe I still have to spend some time on this, and if possible, we can continue this this session or topic again next week.
Definitely.
But Yeah, because uh, at times I feel that like I am way too involved in what I'm doing, that like I'm completely tuned out. Okay, and is that right? Or like I think
Absolutely, absolutely. See, that tanmayate means what? Tan, man, dhan, sab ek karke kaam karo. When they say that means what? You no more are feeling that separateness. See, that activity so fully is involved that you're no more thinking I am doing. So action can be a meditation. Action is equally divine offering. When you're fully involved, when you are looking at how best I can do this job, how best it can benefit the purpose for which I'm doing this job, whether I will get the credit or not is a separate thing.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So as long as that
That clarity has come. That clarity has come. But then like way to involve to, let's say, solve a problem or like to achieve something, right?
There's nothing wrong in wanting to get something done, no? See, your company is paying you money. They want certain results to be accomplished, and they have taken you as one of their trusted employee. Then how are you going to repay that trust? Only by giving your best possible action, no? And your best possible action is to make sure that that work gets done to the best possible efforts. So Prabhuji always tells us, who employs us in Light of the Self Foundation? We are all employees of Sri Krishna. So if you are employees of Sri Krishna, how I should conduct myself? If he gave his best to Sudama, his best to Arjuna, his best to Rukmini, his best to Radha, his best to everybody, all his life, he only gave his best to, irrespective of who they are. He showed his Vishwarupa Darshana even to Duryodhana. He gave his best to Duryodhana also first. Then only when that mind did not understand, he had to show him, he had to teach him in a different way. But even that was his best only. And he accepted the best way of exiting life. He got killed by some, in an unknown place, by an unknown arrow. And he had no qualms about that death. He had no qualms about people calling him by various names. Shall we end our session?
Yeah, but like we as humans, like first we just look into our personal thing, and only then we just think of others, right? Like I'm just telling, that is the natural tendency of every person.
Yeah. Tend to your family, then your neighborhood, then your society, maybe then your city, then your state, then your country, or then the whole world. I think
the natural dharma has to be followed.
One step ahead and
See, the natural dharma has to be followed. See, this body has to be preserved. If this body is not having enough to eat, what is that you can give to others? Definitely, there is nothing wrong in that. But that is where need to greed, that distinction has to be made. Is the need of this body fulfilled? Are the needs for this particular body to survive and function well taken care? Then what is the next best use of this body and mind? I got all that mangoes and I ate and I fulfilled my hunger. I had nothing to do with that mango. Neither did I grow that mango, nor did I do anything with processing that mango. So many people, so many animals, so many beings have given their life for that little mango that is coming to my plate. I am not surviving. This body is not surviving just because I thought I want to survive. For this body to get even this little morsel of food, entire existence has to work to make it happen for you. What am I repaying in gratitude for that? Yes, I need to take care, but who I think I am, again I get bound to that identity game. Then based on that, my I need to survive idea comes. Who is that I am thinking? So that is why first clarity is Atmano Mokshartam. Who am I? That has to be repetitively contemplated. Who am I truly? Then this question will resolve naturally. That does not mean that this body should not be attended to. It definitely means that this body has to be taken care of, but not for the sake of feeding this body. Only when this body is healthy can this body attend to others. Not for the sake of pleasure that this body has to be taken care. This body has to be taken care for the benefit of everything else.
Yeah, thank you.
Shall we end?
Yes, Steve.
लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु. लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु. लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु. हरिः ओम तत्सत्. See you all next Saturday morning.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you, sir.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.